In the case of bryophytes, for attachment to the soil or the rock, they have specialized structures which almost look like roots. They are called as the rhizoid. The reproductive structures, the main plant body. So they are of two types, that is gametophyte and sporophyte. You can see the cup-like structures, which are the reproductive structures. They are called as the gemmae. Protonema, it is a sporophyte, so therefore it directly develops from the spore and it is usually creeping. Hello everyone, a warm welcome to today's session on chapter 3, that is Plant Kingdom. I'm Dr. Divya, Biology faculty, Vidyashram Pre-University College, Mysore, Temple of Excellence. So in the previous session, we had studied about the algae that is under the plant kingdom. So we had studied that algae, they can be unicellular or multicellular, and we had also studied the different classes of algae, that is the chlorophyceae, which are the green algae, the phaeophyceae, the brown algae, and the rhodophyceae, that is the red algae. And we also studied what are the uses of these algae for commercial purposes. So apart from that, under plant kingdom, there is one more group of organisms called as the bryophytes. So in today's session, we shall study about the bryophytes. So bryophytes, they are found abundantly everywhere wherever there is a moist condition, and usually you can find them more in the evergreen forest because the evergreen forests are always very damp. And these bryophytes, they are also called as the amphibians of the plant kingdom. So what are amphibians? So in animals, you know that amphibians are the ones which can live in water as well as live on the land as well. So the best example that I can give you in terms of animal is the frog, right? So you know that frogs, they live on land, and whenever it is the mating time, they move into the water because the tadpoles, once they lay their egg, the eggs can get converted into a tadpole. The tadpole requires water. So few of the time they spend in the land and few of the time they spend their life cycle in the water. So that is why they are called as the amphibians. Just like that, the bryophytes also, they have two generations wherein one part of their life cycle they spend it on the terrestrial habitat, and the other part, that too in terrestrial, it should always be moist terrestrial habitat, and the other part, that is for the spores. If the spores, if they have to sporulate, then they should be in water. So that is why they are also called as the amphibians of the plant kingdom, because they live in terrestrial habitat which is damp, as well as they live in the water condition. So that is why they are called so. So the best example that we can take about bryophytes is the mosses and the liverworts. So mosses you might find everywhere growing on rocks, wherever there is moist condition. It is just like a sponge. So those are nothing but the mosses and also the liverworts. So these are the wide variety of bryophytes that are usually found. And when it comes to the habitat or the habit or the place where these bryophytes grow, so they usually prefer moist shaded areas. Why shaded areas? Because whenever there is sunlight, the loss of moisture from the soil is more. So that is why shaded areas which is moist or which is damp, those areas they prefer to grow. And usually they are found in the hills and damp environment, wherever there is even house walls. If there is some leakage in the house walls, there also after a few months you can see the bryophytes or the mosses growing on them. And also they require humid and shaded localities. So everywhere we can say that these organisms, that is the plants, that is bryophytes, they grow almost everywhere wherever there is a damp or a moist condition, and they also grow on bare rocks or soil. So in the riverbeds and ponds, all that, wherever in the side of the riverbeds, wherever the rocks are present, so every time there is the water, that flowing water will keep touching the rock. It will touch the rock while flowing, right? So there and all you can find this bryophytes. So therefore, their succession, that is majority of the growth, is usually found on bare rocks or soil, whichever it is damp. So this is the habitat of the bryophytes. So next, moving on to the different that is the plant body. So how the plant looks. So when you look at a bryophyte, you should be able to differentiate between an algae and a bryophyte. So what are the important characteristics of the plant body of the bryophyte? We shall see. So usually we consider in a plant, we call it as a plant body, we call it as a leaf, we call it as the stem, all that. But bryophytes usually don't have a proper stem, leaf, root, etc. So altogether it is called as a thallus, the plant body. So even in algae, you might recall, in algae I had told you that the plant body is a thalloid-like structure and it is called as a thallus. Similarly, just like that, in bryophytes also the plant body is called as a thallus. So it is thallus-like and it can be prostrate or erect. So prostrate means they can grow like mats crawling. They can grow crawling just like mats, and the best example is Selaginella. They are usually prostrate, and you can also see the best example for erect is Funaria. So erect means it grows straight. So they can be prostrate or erect, and they are always attached to the substratum. So why they are attached to the substratum? Because I told you they are usually attached to the soil or rocks, whichever is damp, wherever there is a damp condition. So they are usually attached to the substratum. And what helps in attachment? Here again, don't think that bryophytes, they have roots like how the plants have for attachment. In the flowering plants, that is the angiosperms or in the gymnosperms, they have the roots for the attachment to the soil. But in the case of bryophytes, for attachment to the soil or the rock, they have specialized structures which almost look like roots. They are called as the rhizoids. So these unicellular or multicellular rhizoids help in the attachment. So you can see here, these are nothing but the rhizoids. So they're almost root-like, but when it comes to bryophytes, don't write it as root. It is wrong. You have to write it as rhizoids. So rhizoids help in the attachment of the bryophytes to the soil or the rock. So they are called as the rhizoids. And these bryophytes, they do not have a true root. Instead of a true root, they have a rhizoid. So they lack a true root. They do not have a true root, a stem or a leaf. So you can now tell me there is a stem, but it is not the stem. You cannot call it as the stem. It is just a stalk, and this is the plant body, but it is not the leaf. So bryophytes, they do not have a true leaf or the stem, and not even a true root, but instead they have rhizoids, and they just possess root-like, leaf-like or stem-like structures, but they are not the actual leaf, stem or the root. So they possess root-like, leaf-like or stem-like structures. So this here you can see the root-like structures, rhizoids, then they possess the leaf-like structures, leaf-like, and then they possess the stem-like structures. So stem-like structures. So stem-like structures. So this is about the plant body. So after the plant body, we shall see about the reproductive structures. So usually the reproductive structures, the main plant body. So they are of two types, that is gametophyte and sporophyte. So the plant body is the gametophyte, and the sporophyte is the one that produces the spores. So the main plant body of the bryophyte is actually haploid, that is N in number. So the main plant body, it is haploid, and the gametophyte produces the gametes and the sporophyte produces the spores. So always remember, bryophytes, they have the gametophytic generation and the sporophytic generation. So the gametophyte, they usually produce the gametes. So in the gametes, so if they have to produce the gametes, you know that they should have the male gamete and the female gamete. So the male sex organ in the case of, so where will the male gamete be produced? It will be produced in the male sex organ, that is the antheridium. And these antheridium, they produce the anthrozoids. So anthrozoids are the male gametes of the bryophytes, that is of the gametophytic generation. So in the gametophytic generation of the bryophytes, they produce gametes. So in the gametes, two organs are responsible for the production of the male gamete and the female gamete. So when it comes to the male gamete, it is the male sex organ which is called as the antheridium. So the male sex organ, that is the antheridium, which produces the male gamete, and they produce the antherozoids. So these antherozoids, they are biflagellate. Why they are biflagellate? Because I told you, during the reproductive phase, the bryophytes are in water. So whatever this reproduction and all should take place, it takes place in the water. Otherwise, they are present in the terrestrial habitat. So that is why they are biflagellate, because it takes place in water. It has to swim in the water. So that is why it is biflagellate. So these antherozoids, they are biflagellate. And when it comes to the female sex organs, they are called as the archegonium. And the archegonium, they are just like a flask. So they are flask shaped and they produce a single egg. So gametes, usually it is just like human. Just remember the human reproduction, wherein the male gametes were the sperms and lots of sperms are produced. But how many eggs are produced? Only one, right? Just like that here also, these produce many antherozoids, which are the male gametes. They are biflagellate in nature. And when it comes to the female sex organs, we have the archegonium. So archegonium is flask shaped and it produces one single egg. So the antherozoids, so how does the fertilization take place? Now we have the antheridium and we have the archegonium. So this is I've taken the example of Marchantia. So in Marchantia, this is the plant body, as you can see. So this is prostrate. So you have the rhizoids here, the rhizoids, and then they are prostrate, and then it looks like they have a leaf-like structure and they have a stem-like structure, but they're not true leaf and stem. Archegonium and the antheridium. So archegonium, it is the female, antheridium is the male. So these are the reproductive structures. So now in this plant, there is, in this particular bryophyte example that I've taken, they have the female reproductive structure or the female sex organ, that is the antheridium. So what does the antheridium produce? It produces one egg. And in one more plant is present. Sometimes it is present in different plants. Sometimes they are present in the same plant. So I'll show you when the other slides come up, so you will understand. So archegonium, the female produces one egg and the male produces the antherozoids. So these antherozoids are biflagellate. So what happens here? Now the antherozoids are released. Where it is released? Into the water. That is why they are called as amphibians, because the antherozoids and the released into the water. So whenever it is released into the water, what happens there? It will go and come in contact with the archegonium. So their fertilization will take place. So when fertilization takes place, it will give rise to a new bryophyte plant or the progeny or the offspring. So antherozoids, they are released into the water and they come in contact with the archegonium. So after they come in contact with the archegonium, the fertilization takes place. And once the fertilization takes place, the new progeny or the new plant body or the thallus-like structure develops of a new bryophyte. So that is how the reproduction takes place. And again, I'll repeat, because the antherozoids are released into water and the fertilization occurs in water, and because the bryophytes are growing in the terrestrial habitat, that is why they are called as the amphibians of the plant kingdom. So next, moving on to, so once the fertilization occurs, the zygote will develop. So zygote, when it develops, soon after the zygote develops, it is almost just similar to the plant reproductive structure. So just recall, so soon after the zygote is formed. So how the zygote is formed? By the fusion of the antherozoid with that of the egg cell. So when the zygote is formed, they will not undergo immediate reduction division. So what is the reduction division here? It is nothing but meiosis. So soon after the formation of the zygote, soon after the zygote forms, they will not undergo meiosis or the reduction division. They'll wait for a certain time, and afterwards they develop into, after undergoing meiotic division, after some time, they produce a multicellular body called the sporophyte. So what is the sporophyte here? This is the sporophyte. So this plant body is called as the sporophyte, and the reproductive part or the antheridium or the gametes, they are nothing but the gametophyte. So those organs which produce the gametes will form the gametophyte. The example, the archegonium and the antheridium, and the plant body will form the sporophyte. So they will produce a multicellular body called the sporophyte. Remember, I told you they will produce a new progeny of the bryophyte, right? So the first that is formed is nothing but the sporophyte, which is a multicellular plant body. So the sporophyte, it is actually not free living. Why? Because it is always attached to the photosynthetic gametophyte, and it derives its nourishment from the photosynthetic gametophyte. So why? Because I told you, plants, the zygote, they develop nourishment from the nucellus or from the endosperm tissue, right? Similarly here, these sporophyte, they are not free living photosynthetic. They always depend on the gametophyte. They are always attached to the photosynthetic gametophyte, and the gametophytes are the ones which photosynthesizes and they provide the nourishment to the sporophyte, and the sporophyte derives the nourishment from the gametophyte. So this, and also in some cells of the sporophyte, they undergo reduction division. So I told you, once the zygote is formed, immediately they will not undergo meiosis. They get converted into the sporophyte, and these sporophyte, the cells, so sporophytes are multicellular. They have a large number of cells. They have more than one cells. So these cells of the sporophyte, they will undergo reduction division, that is nothing but meiosis, and they produce the haploid spores. So the spores are N, they produced N in number, they produce the haploid spores. So these spores again germinate and they give rise to the gametophyte. So that is how the cycle continues. So what happens? The male gamete and the female gamete, that is the anthrozoid and the egg cell, will meet in the water. When fertilization occurs, zygote will develop. The zygote, soon after, it will not undergo a reduction division. It will get converted into a sporophyte, which is nothing but the plant body or the thallus. And these sporophytes, they are not free living. They are always associated with the gametes or the gametophyte, which are photosynthetic in nature. Since the gametophytes are photosynthetic nature, they provide nourishment to the developing sporophytes, and in the sporophyte, I told you, they are multicellular, more than one cells are present. So among the number of cells that are present, few of the cells will undergo again reduction division, and those few cells will give rise to the gametophyte. Again, what will happen? The gametophyte, again, they will produce the male and the female gamete. They will fuse. This is how the life cycle continues. So this is about the reproduction or the life cycle of the bryophyte. So the spores, they will again germinate to produce the gametophyte. So therefore, the life cycle or the reproduction of the bryophytes undergoes in two stages. One is the gametophytic stage and the other one is the sporophytic stage. So next, moving on to the economic importance. So bryophytes, they are a lot of importance. They are of lot of importance, not just in gardening purposes, but also for other commercial purposes. They are of great importance. So we shall see about them. So mosses, usually they provide food for herbaceous mammals. So some of the mammals, that is those animals which give birth to young ones, they are called as the mammals. So to the mammals, birds, and also few other animals, they serve as a food. So herbivorous animals, they depend on these bryophytes, especially the mosses, for their food. So in moss, there is one species of moss called as sphagnum. So sphagnum, it has been used as a fuel, that is, it is made up of peat. So what is peat? First you need to understand what peat is. So whenever you go to an evergreen forest, right, huge trees will have a small hollow in them. So in that hollow or that hole, what happens? you know that the wind carries all the debris, plant debris and all, right? Whenever it is the wind currents will carry. So those wind currents will carry those plant debris and get deposit in those holes. So after a period of time, they will decay and it will form a highly organic fertilizing material. So that particular organic material is nothing but it is called as the peat. So not just that, moss also form a peat. Why? Because when they decay, they produce nothing but peat. It has a high content of nutrients and all that. So these peats, they are actually used as a fuel. So they have been used as a fuel and also they are used as a packing material. So why packing material? Because I told you moss, they are always present in damp environment. So if you touch a moss, you can feel water in it. So because it has the capacity to hold water, it can be used to wrap certain materials which will get spoiled very fast, because some materials, if they have to undergo shipment, so you know that shipment will take a lot of time. So until that, if the material has to survive, it should be wrapped in moss. So here that is why it is used as a packaging material for transshipment of living material. Say for example, you want to transport flowers, say for example tulips. I'm just giving you an example for you to understand. Tulips, it is nowhere grown in India. So it has to be imported from another country. How can you import it? It is brought by shipment, right? So at that time, tulip flowers, they need moisture. Otherwise, you know that flowers, if you don't provide them moisture, the best example is vase. If you keep a flower in a vase with water, it will stay for a longer time. If you don't pour water, just leave it like that, half a day, it will completely dry, right? The same way here. So what happens here is they wrap the flower, or at least the stem of the flower, they wrap it in this moss, so that it will keep providing moisture to the flower and it can be transported from one country to another country. So that is how, because mosses have the capacity to hold water, they are used as a packaging material for transshipment or transshipping. And also moss, I told you, they grow on substratums like rocks. So they have the ability to decompose the rocks. And moss, when they decompose the rocks, what happens here is they create a lot of mineral nutritions. That is why sometimes you find even other plants growing on the rocks. So they decompose rocks, making the substrate suitable for the growth of other higher plants on the rocks. And apart from that, these moss, since they form a bed-like structure on the soil and their rhizoids hold on or cling on to the soil tightly, they also prevent soil erosion. So therefore, mosses or the bryophytes can also be grown in slopy areas in order to reduce the impact of falling rain and to prevent soil erosion. So therefore, mosses are used to reduce the impact of falling rain. So whenever there is heavy rain in the slopes, it will wash away the soil. So in order to prevent the soil erosion, mosses can be grown in the slope. These are some of the economic importance of mosses or bryophytes in general. So next, moving on to the classes of bryophytes. So bryophytes, they are divided into two main classes, that is the liverworts and the mosses. So these liverworts and moss, so you can see here moss, they form bed-like structures and you can see them growing on the substratum, that is the rock. Even the liverworts also, you can see them growing on the rock. So we shall study about these two classes of bryophytes, that is liverworts and mosses, in detail. So first we shall study about the habit of the liverworts. So when it comes to habit, again I told you about the general characteristics of bryophytes. The same thing applies here when it comes to the specificity of liverworts. So liverworts, they usually grow in moist, shady habitats, and they are especially wherever there is streams, that is banks of streams, ponds, rivers, there and all you can find them growing. And also they grow in marshy ground, because marshy ground, it always has little bit of moisture in them. marshy grounds, damp soil, and also in barks of trees and deep in the woods. So deep in the woods, because you know that whenever there is a forest canopy, it will prevent direct entry of the sunlight to the forest floor. So therefore what happens, the forest floor will always be damp. So in deep woods also you can find these liverworts growing, and not just that, they are also found growing on the barks of the tree. So this is about the habitat. So Markhansia is one of the best examples for liverwort. That is why I've put this diagram here. So let us study about the plant body of the liverwort, wherein I'll take the example of Markhansia to explain the plant body. So bryophytes, in that this liverworts, they have a thalloid plant body, and the thallus, it is dorsiventral. So dorsiventral, it has a dorsal side, that is the upper side, and a ventral side, that is the lower side. That is why it is called as dorsiventral. So it is dorsiventral and it is closely appressed to the substratum. So if this is a substratum, be it a tree or a rock, it is, or a soil, it is closely appressed, means it grows close to the ground or close to the surface of the substratum on whichever it is growing. So that is what it is, closely appressed to the substrate, and they are leafy members. So though they are leafy members, they do not have a leaf, but they have a leaf-like structure. So these are the leaf-like structures. So that is why we can call it as they are leafy members. So you can see they are leafy members, leaf-like. So they are leafy members, and you can see they are appressed to the substratum. They grow as if they are stuck to the substratum. So they are appressed to the substratum. And next, the next important feature is they are leafy members. Some have tiny leaves and some have large leaves. So Markhansia is one of the best examples for a larger leaf. So they have tiny leaf-like appendages in 2 rows on the stem-like structure. So 2 rows in stem-like structure. So they have, it is like folded, as if it is folded. They have a dorsal side and a ventral side, and this is the stem-like structure. So on the stem-like structure, it is attached the leafy plant body, or the thallus, it is attached to the stem-like structure. So this is a simple, it is very simple, the plant body of liverwort. The best example that I've taken is Markhansia. So next, moving on to the reproduction. So it is almost similar, whatever I told you, the general characters of bryophytes, the same thing carries here as well. So when it comes to reproduction, the reproduction is asexual. So the asexual reproduction is the production of the that is by fragmentation or by production of gemmae. So gemmae are produced in cup-like structures called gemma. So you can see here cup-like structures. So these are gemmae. So you can see the cup-like structures. They are the gemmae. So you can see the leaf-like structure. On the leaf-like structure, you can see the cup-like structures, which are the reproductive structures. They are called as the gemmae, and they help in the asexual reproduction. So asexual reproduction can be by fragmentation. What is fragmentation? In algae, also I had explained, whenever a small bit of it gets detached from the plant body, that bit will start developing into a new plant body. That is nothing but fragmentation, and they also produce gemmae. So we shall see what this gemmae are. So gemmae, they are green. So they are green, they are multicellular, that is they are made up of more than one cell. They are green, they are multicellular, they are asexual buds. You can see they look like buds, that is why it is called as they are asexual buds. Then they develop in small receptacles called gemmae cups. So these are the gemmae cup and these are the gemmae cups, and in the gemmae cups inside you can see the gemma or the gemmae. So you can see the gemmae. So they are green, they are multicellular, they are produced in special structures or asexual structures called as the gemmae cup. They look like a cup, that is why it is called as the gem cup, and since they produce the gemma, they are called as the gemmae cup. Small receptacles called gemmae cup, and where are these gemmae cup located? They are located on the thalli, and these gemmae, they become detached directly from the plant body and they form a new separate plant body. That is why it is a asexual reproduction. Here the gametes are not involved. What happens? The gemmae cup which is producing the gemma, they detach from the, when they fall off from the plant body, it will give rise to or it will develop into a new plant body. So they become detached from the parent body and they germinate and form new individuals, just like the seeds. They germinate and form new individuals or new progenies or new offsprings. So that is why it is asexual reproduction. Here sexual organs are not involved. That is the antheridia and the archegonia are not at all involved here. So this is about the asexual reproduction, wherein fragmentation and the production of gemma will occur. So we shall see about sexual reproduction. So we had already studied about asexual reproduction, wherein fragmentation and the production of gemma occurs in the gemma cups. And when it comes to sexual reproduction, as the name itself suggests, the male and the female sex organs are involved. So either you can find the male sex organ and the female sex organ in the same plant body, or they can be produced in different plant body. So I told you they have two kind of a generation. One is the sporophytic generation and the other one is the gametophytic generation. So in the sporophytic generation, the plant body is actually differentiated into a foot, seta and a capsule. So these sporophytes, once the spores are produced, that is after meiosis. So the sporophytes, I told you some of the some of the cells, the sporophyte, it is a multicellular. In those, among those cells, few of the cells will undergo meiosis and they will produce the spores, and these spores that are produced within the capsule, they germinate to form the free living gametophytes. So they germinate and they form the gametophytes. So what are the gametophytes? They are the, as I explained to you previously in the general characters, the gametophytes are the anthrozoids and the archegonium. So the antheridium produces the anthrozoids, that is the male gametes, and the archegonium produces the egg cell, that is the female gamete. So that is how they will fuse and fertilization will occur. They will form the zygote, and the zygote, it forms the sporophyte. Again it will form the sporophyte, and the sporophyte again undergoes meiosis, and those again will form the male and the female gamete. This is how the cycle continues. So this is about the sexual reproduction. So we have finished with the liverworts. So I told you there is one more class of bryophytes, that is mosses. So mosses, they actually have two stages of development. One is the protonema stage and the other one is the leafy stage. So protonema, they actually directly develop from the spore or from the sporophyte, and when you see, it is usually creeping. So the protonema, it is a sporophyte, so therefore it directly develops from the spore and it is usually creeping, and they develop directly from the spore. It is creeping, they are green, they are branched, and they are frequently in filamentous stage. So they are creeping, they are green in color, they are branched, and they are in the filamentous stage. And when it comes to the leafy stage, so leafy stage, they develop from the secondary protonema. So from the protonema, the leafy stage develops. So they develop from the secondary protonema and they form a lateral bud. So they develop from the secondary protonema and they look like a bud. So they look like a lateral bud. So they consist of upright, slender, axis-bearing, spirally arranged leaves. So they have leaves which are arranged in spiral, just like spring-like. So they have spirally arranged leaves, and they are, again here also, they are always found attached to the substratum. So how are they attached to the substratum? They are attached to the soil through or to the substratum through multicellular organs called as the rhizoids. So these rhizoids, they are multicellular and they are branched, and apart from this, it is the leafy stage that bears the sex organs. So this is about the two stages of the mosses. So mosses, they have the protonema stage and the leafy stage. So protonema stage, it directly develops from the spore, whereas the leafy stage develops. Once the protonema stage occurs, then only the leafy stage can continue. Why? Because the leafy stage develops from the secondary protonema and they develop as a lateral bud, and the name itself suggests they are leafy and they are spirally arranged. So this is about the mosses. So next, moving on to the reproduction in mosses. Again here, mosses, they have two types of reproduction. One is the vegetative reproduction and the other is the sexual reproduction. So in vegetative reproduction, they reproduce by production of fragmentation. So, and also here the budding will occur in the secondary protonema. So buds will be formed, and those buds, they get detached from the plant body and they develop into a new offspring or a progeny. So that is why it is a vegetative reproduction. And coming to sexual reproduction, here again the sex organs, that is the antheridia and the archegonia, produced. Where are they produced? They're produced at the apex or at the tip of the leafy shoots. So they're present at the tip of the leafy shoots. So you can see they are present at the tip of the leafy shoot after fertilization. So the antheridia, it will produce the anthrazoids. The archegonia will produce the eggs. So those two will come in contact with each other. Fertilization will occur. So after fertilization, the zygote will develop, and the zygote, it will develop into what? It will, same as I explained the liverworts, the same thing here. The zygote will develop into a sporophyte. So the sporophyte, what is it made up of? Here also, just like liverworts, the sporophyte is made up of foot, seta and capsule. So the capsule is the one which produces the spores. Those spores will germinate and give rise to the spores. They will germinate and give rise to the gametophytes. So spores, they are usually formed after meiosis. So the sporophyte or the will undergo meiosis, or in general, if I have to say, the capsule, they will undergo meiosis, or the sporophytes, they undergo meiosis and they produce the spores in the capsule, and after that the spores will be dispersed, and that is how they will develop into a new organism. So this is about the sexual reproduction. So next, moving on to some common examples of mosses. So some of the common examples of mosses are Funaria, Polytrichum and Sphagnum. Sphagnum is one of the very important moss because sphagnum is usually used in the flower industries, horticulture related and all that, because it is used for, it is especially used as a packaging material. So we have Funaria, then we have Polytrichum and Sphagnum. So these are the different types of mosses that are commonly seen. So Funaria is one of the widely seen moss because anywhere in the tree, branches of the trees and all, you can find this Funaria. Even on walls, everywhere you can find the Funaria. So all these also, it is abundantly found in the evergreen forest. So these are some of the common examples of mosses. So this was about bryophytes. So in bryophytes, you studied the general characteristics of bryophytes, wherein we discussed about the plant body, the reproductive structures, how the reproduction takes place, and then we went in for the classes of bryophytes, that is two classes, liverworts and mosses. So in liverworts, the reproduction that takes place is vegetative by fragmentation, asexual by the production of gemma, and sexual by the production of the male and the female sex organ, that is the antheridia and the archegonia respectively. And similarly, in the case of mosses, there is the reproduction is vegetative and sexual. No asexual reproduction is involved here. So this is about the bryophytes and the two classes of bryophytes. So I hope you have understood this session well. So in the next coming session, we shall discuss about the next group of plants which are called as the pteridophytes. So we shall meet in the next coming session. Thank you.